Things to get acclimated.
All right, I'll call to order the December 11, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees. If you would please stand and join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 1.03, adoption of the agenda. It is recommended that the agenda for the December 11, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees be adopted as presented.
I move for adoption.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 2.01, the Notre Dame Internship Program update. Mr. Ross and Dr. Sigmund.
President Curry, Mr. Barker, board members, and guests. About 8 years ago, Dr. Burns from one of the Notre Dame research labs and Dr. Sigmund came to visit Mishawaka High School and basically made us an offer we couldn't refuse. And in fact, it was so good I thought, all right, what's the catch? How could they possibly be offering Mishawaka High School students a chance to work in one of the premier labs, arguably in the country, doing nuclear research? For what? What's the catch? Anyway, there was no catch. This was just a community outreach. As many of you know, Dr. Burns has students in our school system, and he was just providing a spectacular opportunity for our students. The first couple of years, we had a kid or two involved in the program, and then Dr. Sigmund said, you know, Dr. Burns and I have been talking. We've got far more capacity. We don't need a couple of students. We need like a dozen students. All righty then. So we started finding ways to recruit more kids, and I think over the last 6-7 years, we've had somewhere between 6 and 12 kids in the program, and it's been, again, a very spectacular event for all of them. I'm going to ask Dr. Sigmund to come up and give you a few more groups about the specificity of the program, and then we've got a couple students who are going to give you short presentations with some intent of scaring you slightly, okay? Only kidding. All right, anyway, Dr. Sigmund.
All right, thank you. My name is Dr. Ginger Sigmund, and as Mr. Ross said, I help lead the Notre Dame research internship. Over the past 8 years, we've had 55 students in the program. 85 of them have been women, and to my knowledge, all of the students who have gone through the program, all the seniors have gone on to an undergraduate institution in some type of STEM program, more specifically in physics, chemistry, and engineering. So for the program, the students come to campus twice a week, and they meet with me about 5 or 6 times throughout the academic year, or throughout each semester, to discuss their projects and what they're working on, and we discuss other energy-related topics. So as Mr. Ross said in the beginning, all of the students were in Dr. Burns's lab, and as we expanded the program to 12 students, we have put them in different energy research labs across campus, also in chemistry and engineering. So this program is all academic year long. In the first semester, they meet with me and we discuss energy topics, and in the second semester, at the end of the year, the students participate in a poster presentation where they talk about the research that they've done all year with their graduate student mentors. We accept 11th and 12th graders, and the students that participate as juniors are allowed to then participate again as seniors. So the students that I have with me today are both seniors who have participated. This is their second year working in the program.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Harvey, and I'm a senior at Mishawaka High School. This is my second year in this internship. I work with Professor Amy Hickson, and my graduate student is Rebecca Carter. Within this internship, I work with rare earth elements as well as working with new techniques in this field of nuclear forensics. And my favorite part of the lab work I do is making solutions that will hopefully turn into a glass. And what I've learned from that is last year, when I was doing the experiments, we didn't really get a glass. So we had to go back and we had to retry everything. And it's just a good learning experience because not everything you do will work, but it's okay to fail. And what makes this internship really special is when I first joined, I was skeptical because I thought it was for real smart kids that are in honors programs that are valedictorians, but I realized that if I go into it with the open mind and the willingness to learn, that I can do it, and I end up really liking it, and it's been my favorite part of the high school so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for the past 1.5 years, I've had the privilege of getting to intern in Svetlana Narentina's nanoparticle fabrication lab with my graduate student mentor, Robert Douglas Neal. In our lab, we study the catalytic processes and leaching of various noble metal catalysts using model catalytic reactions. Just for some background, catalysts specifically in our case are commonly gold nanospheres, which help speed up our reaction but that are not consumed by it. The model catalytic reaction we use is a reduction reaction between 4-nitrophenol and sodium borohydride to then create 4-aminophenol. Our goal for our studies is fundamental, trying to figure out the stability of these catalysts in aqueous media. Using our experimental data, we can measure the degradation of these catalysts, aka leaching, using a photospectrometer. Again, leaching is essentially problematic for the catalysis and therefore measuring catalytic activity. We have also incorporated various capping agents into our experiments, such as polyvinyl pyrrolidone and aminothiophenol to coat the surface of the substrate nanoparticles in attempts to prevent agglomeration from occurring. Through my Notre Dame internship, I've gotten the opportunity to have a hands-on experience working in a graduate-level research lab that has inspired me to continue my path to further my education and eventually work in a pharmaceutical research lab. I've been able to learn the process of catalysis, spectroscopy, and nanoparticle fabrication. It has helped me prepare for future work by teaching me certain laboratory procedures such as properly cleaning, micropipetting, spectroscopy, calculating molarity, and correct lab safety. My experience has also helped re-spark my passion for learning about the advanced sciences by getting to talk to my research mentor about things 1 year ago I didn't even know existed. Talking with my research mentor, Rob, and the other students in the lab has significantly helped me with my college application process by getting to hear their experiences and advice, and has also given me a feel for what graduate student life is like. I can confidently say that they are some of my greatest role models, and I am very thankful to have been placed in their lab, when I'll admit at first, like Liz, I was very nervous and skeptical. I'd like to thank all the people that made this experience possible for me, as it has been such a blessing in my life and has given me something to look forward to every white day. Thank you.
So these are just a couple examples. As you heard, the students are directly in the lab working with the graduate students. They're synthesizing their materials, characterizing them, running instruments, learning how the instruments work, interpreting the data, and then they also sometimes they get the hand in helping write the manuscript. I know Ms. Harvey is currently helping her graduate student write up a manuscript on the research that they've been doing. So invite you to come to the poster presentations in May, and you'll get to learn about what all the students have been doing. Thank you.
Well, yes, and if you could let the superintendent's office know when that will be and
Yep.
the arrangements,
Great.
I think we'd like to do that.
Yes, we'll pass that word out once we get a hard schedule on that. I've come up also to give Dr. Burns and Dr. Sigmund some Mishawaka polo shirts, which actually have just a little bit of nuclear stuff on it. All right. So I think this is yours. Maybe.
Thank you.
I think this is yours, Doc.
Well, Well, Dr. Sigmund and Burns, I knew that this program existed, but I really didn't know very much about it until tonight. And I mean, it's very impressive, and it sounds like it's a wonderful opportunity for our students, and it's something we very much look forward to continuing.
Thank you for the opportunity that Notre Dame and yourself have given our students to really expand the vision of where they can go. It's something that's hard to really appreciate as much as we do.
I too want to say thank you. I'm so impressed. I hope the remainder of the meeting I understand what we're actually talking about. Much of the presentation I think was completely over my head, but I'm very impressed by our students. Thank you to Notre Dame and for both of you professors for providing this opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity for our students. Thank you.
Moving on to item 2.02, our job well done section. Ms. Smith.
To celebrate Karen Landis, and she is here with us tonight. She's a second grade teacher at Liberty Elementary School. Excuse me. She began working with us in 2001, and she's worked both at Beeger and Liberty Elementary Schools. She's taught in reading recovery, third grade, first and second grade deep, and second grade. And she's a passionate educator and has a great love for her students. She enjoys collaborating and sharing what she's acquired through experiences in education as a mentor for Indiana Science Initiative through Purdue, adjunct faculty at IUSB, PBIS team leader, PLC leader, and supervising teacher for student teachers and high school students. Very busy lady. Karen had this comment to make. I think relationship is at the core of teaching. If kids know we love them, respect them, care about them, they will strive to be successful. It's important to make every day engaging, meaningful, and fun. And some fun facts, so we get to know Karen a little bit. She has 3 children. Her oldest daughter and son-in-law and 2 grandkids live in North Carolina, and he's finishing up his residency in anesthesiology next year. Her middle daughter is in Salt Lake City, completing a pharmacy residency and will be married this summer. And her son is a senior at Purdue and will be graduating in May with a degree in industrial design. So on top of all the work busyness, she has a very busy family too. Her husband, who is here tonight with her as well, he teaches health sciences at Penn as the athletic trainer at Jimtown. And they enjoy spending time together, exploring new places, traveling, biking, hiking, spending time outdoors. And her 2 favorite things to do are shelling at the ocean shore and hiking in the mountains. One of her colleagues had this to share. Karen is a passionate educator. She strives to do the best for her students and colleagues every day. She's willing to learn new techniques and encourages all of us to work to our best potential. So tonight we have Karen here with us. And I do have to say, too, as a parent, my son, he was in a Catholic school prior to 3rd grade. And so in 3rd grade, we switched. We were actually out of district, but Beeger was where we wanted to go, and we got in there. And Karen would happen to be his teacher. So to that transition from Catholic school to public schools, it was a little bit of a challenge. It was a little different. And she was there the whole time, just so welcoming, and made it so easy for us the whole time. And even still, after all these years, he's a senior this year, and she still asks about him all the time, how he's doing and stuff. So that I do have to say 3rd grade was definitely one of his best years ever. So thank you, Karen. So tonight we get to say, job well done. So thank you, oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So a little something. And Hacienda donated a gift certificate for you, so you get to enjoy an evening out on them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Well, thank you, Ms. Landis, for all you do. Our teachers are our most important part of our what we do. And it's always inspiring to hear the stories about the wonderful things that go on in the classroom. So thank you for making such a positive difference. All right, we'll now go into the comments and questions from the floor section of the agenda. Item 3.01, representatives of the PTA. Is there anyone from the PTA here to address the board? If not, item 3.02, representatives of school employees. Item 3.3, representatives of the Mishawaka Education Foundation. Mr. Dendu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, board members. First off, on behalf of the Mishawaka Education Board of Directors, I want to thank all of you for your service and dedication to Mishawaka students and staff. The foundation, in partnership with the school board and the MHS Alumni Association, is making a true difference for children in Mishawaka. Second, happy 25th birthday to the Mishawaka Education Foundation. Our 25 years of Granting the Future event is occurring right now. Our annual appeal campaign, where we ask donors to help celebrate with us, is live, and many contributions of $25 or more have been received from all across the country. Our donors are happy with what we are doing in the school city of Mishawaka, and we appreciate your help in getting the message out. Finally, from everyone at the Mishawaka Education Foundation, we wish you a happy holiday and a wonderful 2020 as together we grant the future for our Mishawaka children. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that ends the recognition and public input part of the agenda. We're going to be now moving into the business section. So if there is anybody in the audience who is here only for the recognition section and doesn't intend to stay for the business part, this would be a good time to leave. But the business part is often the very interesting part of it. So you're also very welcome and encouraged to stay.
Don't believe it. You didn't know that guy for the MEF, did you?
Just slightly. All right, moving into the consent agenda section of the agenda. Item 4.01, approval of the minutes of the November 26, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees. It is recommended that the minutes of the November 26, 2019 regular meeting of the board be approved as presented. Item 4.02, approval of bill warrants and payroll. It is recommended that the bill warrants and payroll in the amount of $2,597,475.50 be approved for payment from the appropriate funds. Item 4.03, acceptance of donations. It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees accept the donations as listed and documented. Those are a monetary donation of $500 from Big C Lumber to John Young Middle School, a monetary donation of $500 from United Steelworkers Local 1191 to the Food Services Department for student lunches. And finally, 4.04, approval of the consent agenda. Is there a recommendation that the Board of School Trustees approve the consent agenda as presented?
Move for approval. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept and approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. This next section is our Vision Initiative section, item 5.01, MTSS update. Mr. Calderon, Ms. Hickel, and Mr. Laban.
Mr. Barker. As has been reported in previous board meetings, and you will probably remember, Mr. Barker created a 90-day plan to guide the beginning days of his work here at School City of Mishawaka. One of the components of that plan was to survey the staff and community members, and from that survey, there were 5 common themes that came out. One was pace of change or pace of work, the second being student behavior, the third, technology implementation, fourth, communication, and finally, the 5th, human resource allocation. Since that time, our senior leadership team has been working on a plan related to these common themes. Mr. Barker has asked Mr. Calderoni, Mr. Laban, and myself to present information tonight regarding our multi-tiered systems of support, and we are excited to share these updates and our future plans with you tonight. What you see on the screen on the left is the Indiana Department of Education's graphic to help better explain MTSS. What you see on the right then are the components. Much of that work is what we'll share with you tonight and the work we've been working on. I just want to acknowledge with the tree graphic of MTSS, what you're seeing is the coordinated efforts of the academics as well as the social emotional support and then PBIS. Our part of the presentation will focus primarily on social emotional learning tonight, while we are working on those other two components as well. The first thing we're excited to share with you tonight is something we've been working on for quite some time. One of our first goals was to adopt a social emotional learning curriculum K-12 for all of our students in School City of Mishawaka. This one is a particularly touching story because it really started from the ground up. It started with our teachers, and in particular, one of them is here tonight, Miss Karen Landis. There was a PLC at Liberty who was looking at the problems of practice associated with social emotional learning and particularly disruptive behaviors. And the resource that they found and they wanted to explore was Leader in Me. Leader in Me is a Stephen Covey product. So it is focused around the same 7 habits that you may be familiar with if you're familiar with Covey's work. But it really looks at attacking the social emotional learning from the positive perspective of creating leaders and recognizing that all students are leaders and can be leaders within a building. And then it integrates efforts to look at the culture of a building as well as the academics and then particularly the leadership components, whether that be the admin, the teachers, or the students and the community with parents' involvement. Through their work, we were very pleased with what we found out about Leader in Me, and we became very interested. But we were concerned that it wouldn't be sustainable for all of our schools because it is costly. Right about that same time, we were made aware of a grant opportunity that was highly competitive and had a really quick turnaround. So with a lot of hours put in and one 3 a.m. Evening, we were able to apply for the grant. And then there was a lot of hurry up and wait, and we've been waiting for a long time to be able to share this news with you tonight that we have been awarded one of the first district-wide implementation grants for Leader in Me that will allow us to bring this curriculum to all of our schools. They have just recently added a high school component, so there'll be integration vertically. We won't have to adopt a different curriculum. Liberty has been kind of the vanguard group piloting this. They started with a book study. The majority of their teachers have now been 7 habits trained with a Covey trainer, and they have just completed their launching leadership training that helps them to understand how they can create those leaders in students. With this grant, we will also have the opportunity to train district trainers, and Karen will be one of those trainers, so thank you, Karen. And what that'll allow us to do is have sustainability in the long term. We wanted to make sure that whatever we adopted didn't come and go. It wasn't the next best thing. It's something that we really think ties into our core values here with the Mishawaka Way, and we wanted to be able to sustain that beyond the life of the grant. So through the district trainers, we will be able to continue to train staff as we get new staff and to share this with the community. So that is a very exciting announcement.
We were approached by the Indiana Department of Education and then eventually awarded the opportunity to partner with Terrace Metrics. Terrace Metrics offers a universal screener for social emotional learning. School City of Mishawaka is proud that we were just one of 6 districts in the state of Indiana awarded this opportunity. And we're excited to be piloting this at John Young Middle School and Emmons Elementary School, specifically in grades 3 through 6. Later this school year. What Terrace Metrics does is it provides an assessment tool that allows us to assess the essential social, behavioral, and psychological strengths known to contribute to positive school and learning experiences. From there, then they support a full curriculum that allows us to target the specific needs of each of our students as individuals and then as our schools as learning communities as a whole. So we're really excited for this opportunity, and we thank the Indiana Department of Education for selecting us. The next couple of things that we wanted to walk through are some of the pilots that we have going around the district right now, targeting social emotional learning. The first is whole brain teaching. This is under the leadership and thanks to the leadership of our dynamic duo at LaSalle Elementary School, Mr. Ben DeMoncus and Mr. Bob O'Hara. Whole brain teaching is an approach that integrates effective classroom management and sound instructional strategies to emphasize active learning and maximizes student engagement. Essentially, whole brain teaching does and maximizes on what the brain is supposed to do and how the brain is supposed to function. And the studies that comes from this basically suggest that by tapping both sides of the brain It's easy for students and it's more effective for students to make meaningful connections. And so we're looking forward to seeing how that plays out at LaSalle Elementary School. The next is zones of regulation. We have a great relationship with Chris Curry, who did all of our training, both as a district for our Exceptional Learners Department, and then in addition, she has been at LaSalle Elementary School, working with the LaSalle staff as well on zones. Zones is a systematic cognitive behavioral approach to use self-regulation by categorizing all the ways that we feel into 4 concrete colors. It helps us to provide a framework that teaches students to become more aware and independent in controlling their emotions and impulses, managing their sensory needs, and improves their ability to problem solve conflicts. So this is happening at LaSalle Elementary. We also have it happening at Emmons Elementary School right next door as well. The final piece, again, is happening at LaSalle Elementary School, is a component from Responsive Classrooms, and it's called Morning Meetings. Morning meetings is an engaging way to start each and every single day for the students, to build a strong sense of community, to set children up for success socially and academically. And it focuses on 4 core components: a greeting, sharing, a group activity, and then a morning message as well. So we're excited to see how all of these initiatives are going throughout the rest of the school year, and we'll keep posted on the progress that we see at all of the buildings. Just kidding, yep. This is a new graphic that I'm excited to introduce to you first. It's the first iteration of supporting the whole child. It's the expectations for leaders and learners at School City Mishawaka. We want to acknowledge the efforts of Mrs. Jen Smith and her creative thinking. She put this together for us. And our intent behind this document is to communicate how all of these seemingly separate things fit and function as one cohesive system, right? They're all seemingly isolated from one another, but big picture, this is what we will use to communicate to different stakeholder groups all of our intentionality around supporting the whole child and every child at School City Mishawaka moving forward. So it will continue to evolve based on new research and information that we have made available to us, but we are excited for the first iteration of this and presenting this to you this evening.
Just a quick shout out because I have a personal stake in it. We are excited to continue our whole child workshop. We are looking forward to, we don't have the date set yet for this summer, but we look forward to this continuation. This has really served as a wonderful opportunity to be able to maximize professional learning opportunities for our staff as well as the community. The amount of learning that we've been able to compact into those days without the whole child workshop, we wouldn't be able to provide for our staff. It would take us significantly longer to work all of our staff through those programs. So we're really happy that we have that opportunity, and we look forward to another great whole child workshop this upcoming summer. And as soon as those dates are announced, you will have your invitations. We would love to have you join us. Another thing that we have introduced to you before, but we are looking forward to starting the work with EAB. So we brought before you the agreement with EAB in the fall, announcing that we would begin a survey with our staff, our administrators, and our principals in the buildings to collect data to specifically address the most pressing concerns that we saw in the survey results centered around disruptive behaviors in the elementary grades. We administered that survey in the fall. I just had a conversation with our EAB rep this afternoon, and they have disaggregated our data over the next week. They will then compare that to national norms, and then that'll really launch this project for us. So as early as January, the second week in January, we'll be able to see that data, and they'll do an overview where they can walk us through that data. At that same time, we will form a committee to include different stakeholder groups, particularly elementary teachers and principals. And then we will release that data. We will have a one-day training where we can, with that same committee, we can do a deep dive into the data, see what were the most common responses and the behaviors that were causing the most disruption to learning in our buildings, compare that to the national trends, and then most importantly, look at the research-based strategies that have been used and vetted to address those same concerns. After that meeting, where that group will be able to identify the strategies that they find most promising and want to begin, we will implement some of those strategies in the latter half of second semester to kind of get some data and get a feel for if those could be something that would be influential that we want to build into our greater MTSS plan. Ultimately, by the end of the semester, that committee will have completed the data collection, piloted the strategies that they identified, and then at the same time, they'll be examining elementary resource and needs, which was another theme from the survey. And then they'll make their final recommendations for the long-term plans that we would hope to implement in the fall. You have in your handouts kind of a more detailed explanation of that work with EAB.
Good evening. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of our issues that are taking place in some of our schools. And we've had these conversations over the last 6 months. But as soon as we get the data that Sarah was talking about from the surveys, I think we'll be able to begin moving in a direction that we feel comfortable with, that will be beneficial to not only students and staff, but also play an important role with families in our community as well. Being in this position only for a few months, it was clearly evident from the first week is that we have some issues, okay, with discipline and behavior, especially at the elementary level. And let me say this by stating this before I move any further. We got a lot of great things going on in our elementary schools, and I spend a lot of time in a lot of them. Not as much in some of them, but more time in others. And there's really been so much growth in terms of building school culture, positive school culture in these schools from day one up until just recently. When you walk in these buildings now, it's not on a day in, day out basis where you have 8, 9, 10 kids sitting in the office. Okay, they still have some of those days, but the majority of their days, they're really making a positive difference among students. So our talk here as a leadership team, Mrs. Hickel and Mrs. Stockstill, myself, and Miss Michaelis, and Mr. Laban, we have talked about how can we provide some assistance to our elementary schools right away and not wait until next year to provide some of this assistance. So what we talked about is moving our leader intern, our teachers that are, 3 teachers that are leader interns positions, and then we also have a transition coordinator at the high school that we thought could make a really positive difference. And so what we have done, and this will start beginning of second semester, is Molly Bush will move over to Beeger from her leader intern position working in curriculum here with Sarah, Katie, and Corey. Deb Lewinsky, instead of splitting her time from half day at Emmons and a half day at John Young, she's going to be at Emmons full-time. Bob O'Hara, who is full-time at LaSalle, will continue down that path, and Jen Fisher will be moving over to Liberty. And I've been involved in talking to most of these people, and they're excited. They're excited. They know there's going to be some challenges. One of the people that I talked to recently said, "Boy, those kids are going to be little." You know, and I said, "You know what? They'll be." You know, as I told her, I said, "You know, you're a difference maker, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people to work alongside those principals and be difference makers." And we're hoping this really pays dividends for us quickly. And we can, as we talk about up there, we will continue looking in terms of evaluating and doing some long-term planning after we figure out how this whole thing works and is it impacting and working closely with our principals at the elementary level. The next one, I'm not going to go through all these points, but I think when you talk about putting together a code of conduct, I think there's some really important elements that we need to keep in mind as administrators, as teachers, as board members. And I think we need to do a better job when we put together code of conducts. I think as I look through different schools from the area, and I have 5 or 6 different schools. You look at them and they're 50, 60 pages long, and they're filled with one policy after another. And I'm not sure if those things ever really get truly looked at, okay, by us as administrators. We put them together, but how much time do we actually really spend looking through them? And then we want our students and we want our families to take time and look through those and make sure they have a good feeling on what is expected of them. So I think we really need to make sure we describe what we want done in terms of responsibilities for our students, our parents, and our family members in this new code of conduct. And I think we need to make sure those expectations are shared, what we want done, or what our expectations are for our staff members, that are in our buildings each and every day working with students. They have to model the behavior we expect from our students. That should be modeled from our adults in the buildings. And identify prevention strategies. Sarah talked briefly about taking a look at some of the research strategies that have been developed over the years. Identify classification of incidents and describe corrective strategies. Describe disciplinary action involving suspension, expulsion. Standardized procedures for administering disciplinary actions to students, including students with disabilities. And I see a need for a lot of these things. I sit across tables with families and students in my new position here, and a lot of our adults have no idea how to provide assistance at times to their son or daughter. And I think we need to do a better job as a school corporation of helping these families acquire those resources. And when you hear Corey and Sarah talk about the whole child, we really need to capture that, okay, and identify with that and make those differences, not only with students, but with family members too. And lastly, I think the standards or values that we use when we put this code of conduct together, I think these are very important things to keep in mind. And one of them is integrity. You see the first graphic up there is integrity and responsibility. The second is collaboration and respect. And the last one, which I think may be as important as any of them, we have to do it with compassion, equity, and we have to do it in terms of bringing fairness to what we're doing in our schools every day and working with our students. So those are kind of things I'm kind of looking at as in my position. But as Sarah and Corey mentioned, it's so important today, now more than ever, that we take in consideration the whole child. Dr. Spiker sent me an article yesterday, which I thought was really kind of neat, and read it. And as I was reading it, I'm looking, it was a 1962 article from the South Bend Tribune. And they're talking about these same things in 1962, that they're having some of these same issues in schools back then. And it's 2020 almost, and we're still talking about some of the same things. So, I think we can be really impactful in putting this code of conduct together and putting a committee together that not only consists of adults that work with kids every day, whether it's administrators or teachers, but I think it's also going to be important for us to capture what our community expectations are from our community members. And school board representative on that committee and those type of things. So really looking forward to this. It's going to be a task, but I think it's an important task for School City of Mishawaka, especially at this time. Thank you.
So we have just skimmed the surface of all the good work that's happening in regards to MTSS across the district, from administrators, from teachers, down to our students. This communicates our immediate, ongoing, and our long-term priorities. These are our efforts led through Learning by Design. And as we continue to evolve and develop our comprehensive MTSS system for School City Mishawaka, we look forward to bringing you more updates and sharing more information throughout the rest of the remainder of this school year. Thank you.
Wow. You've been busy, and it all, you know, good work. First of all, congratulations on receiving the grant and recognition from the Indiana Department of Education, and for the hard, I know there's a lot of hard work that goes into qualifying for those, but I'm also very impressed and very encouraged by the commitment to the social emotional learning and the whole child in a very integrated, deep, and thoroughly considered a way that crosses all kinds of the aspects of what we do. Because I think that in addressing children in that way, we help equip them with with the skills, the life skills that they need that are going to make them successful, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom, which is perhaps even more important, you know, in the way that they live their lives. And in doing it in a way that by changing, by having a proactive rather than a reactive behavior management program, it's going to, I think it will be a great benefit to our instructional staff as well, because it'll give them much better and more effective tools for dealing with classroom behavior. So thank you for all you're doing. I look forward to hearing more about it as it gets into operation.
Thank you.
I want to thank Ms. Hickel and Mr. Calderoni and Mr. Levon for presenting. There are more people who've been involved in this work as we've started really talking about some of these things even back in July. Ms. Michaelis, Ms. Coleman, Ms. Stockstill, all of our building administrators. We've spent a lot of time together since, especially since school has started, trying to identify the components of this comprehensive plan that you've seen tonight. And really, the even more difficult work now is going to be in implementing the components of what you've seen. I too want to thank especially Sarah for her work on this national grant that we received for Leader in Me. This was extremely competitive. She put in countless hours. This work started for her back in July when she identified the opportunity, and quite honestly, I think she probably, through her efforts and her talent, stole this opportunity from another district that was probably in the lead for winning it. That was one of the larger districts in the country. So I want to congratulate her. That's a great opportunity for us to have this program and be able to implement it now K-12. But we are excited about the work. We're excited about that we can meet some immediate needs by some of these transfers and human resource allocation for the second semester, and that will hopefully even buy us a little more time to meet some of these needs right now as we try to implement the rest of this comprehensive plan. Mr. Newman has also obviously been a big part of all of these conversations too, because a lot of these things cost money. So we need to make sure that we continue to live within our budget, but we have some real needs, and we're trying to take steps to meet those things, and I think we'll continue to do so. And as Mr. Calderoni said, we've already seen a lot of progress over the last few months in our schools, and I think we'll continue to see that.
I wonder, I've got a question. Jerome, you talked a little bit about repurposing the Leader Intern Program. Can you expand on that a little bit more? I mean,
I just think it's a program we'll probably take a look at down the road. Do we want to continue it? Or do we want to keep these people in place as deans or assistant principals at these schools if we feel like it's making a difference, or any other elementary school in our district. So I think it's just something we're going to take a look at, see if, and Sarah's kind of in charge of that program, but see if it's something we want to continue down that path or not.
okay.
Does that answer your question?
You mean specifically with employees?
Well, are you talking about eliminating the program, or you're repurposing? You're going to do something different?
So two things. One,
Yeah.
for the semester change, it's really shifting what they're doing. So right now, we have Molly with us in curriculum and instruction, and she's getting a look at that work, whereas Deb has split her time experiencing middle school as well as elementary. So it's basically pulling all three of them to the elementary level and then moving Jen Fisher. But at the same time, part of, I think, those committees is really to look at what is the best way to use our human resources. Is it a leader intern program where they have the 2 years and then, they move on to other opportunities? Do we want to create, teachers on special assignments? Do we want assistant principals? What is the best way to use, our most talented uprising leaders in the district?
Okay.
So,
I have to say, what you're doing is not just critical, but it's a foundation of our school system being able to educate and go forward. We're dealing with problems, like Mr. Calderoni said, which have existed since prior to 1962, but have not been really dealt with in a way that we were accelerating the education of our students and providing the education that I think we can going forward. And this is absolutely necessary to do. Thank you.
I think the thing that I'm most intrigued for is the community part of it. I think that School City does a fine job of trying to handle the situations under the roof. But if we don't handle the situations at their other roof, we don't change the dynamic of anything. And so creating a community involvement where we're all on the same page is the only way we're going to change behavior. And so even though I think that we do an okay job at it, I think that making parents accountable and community accountable for change is the only way we're going to see it. And so I'm looking forward to that aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree that there appear to be, in the things that we're implementing, a lot of opportunities for work groups that can get public input, and then that helps show the public what we're doing, and it spreads our story. We do a pretty good job of, well, we could always do a better job of letting people know the good work that's being done here, and one of the most effective ways of doing that is involving them in the good work. So, thank you. Before we move on to the next section of the agenda, I need to correct an omission of mine in skipping over 3.04, general public. And for the record, I'd like to note that no one from the public signed up to address the board this evening. Which takes us then to human resources, personnel report, item 7.01. Mr. Calderon.
It is recommended that the personnel report dated December 11th, 2019 be approved as presented.
Move for approval of the personnel report.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the personnel report as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 9.01, recommendation to approve stop-loss renewal with Berkeley Accident and Health. Mr. Newman.
Thank you, President Curry and members of the board. For your approval this evening, the administration is recommending the renewal of our specific and aggregate stop-loss coverage with Berkeley Accident and Health. I listed the quotes there for renewal at the $125,000 specific premium and then the $150,000 specific threshold. We are recommending that we go with the $150,000 specific deductible. Again, that's going to save us about $125,000 over the $125,000. And then the aggregate premium came in at $31,502. Again, we're recommending renewal with Berkeley at the $150,000 deductible. And Bob Frick from R&R Benefits is with us this evening, should the board have any specific questions about the renewal.
It's my understanding this also reduces individual participant premiums and contributions. Is that correct?
Pardon?
Quoted rate per month, single family, that also appears to be going down?
No, that's what the school corporation pays.
I understand. Okay. All right, are there any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
Move. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item 9.02, recommendation to approve a one-year contract renewal with MNW Telecom. Mr. Mabee.
You get to hear some more E-rate cycle information. Each year around November is when we start our E-rate cycles through Category 1 and Category 2. This is a little bit of a housekeeping on that end. the Schools and Libraries Universal Service Program, commonly known as E-rate, helps schools and libraries obtain affordable telecommunications and internet access. We currently, when we built out our current internet and WAN access, split it into two phases. Phase one was internet access for the district, WAN access for the high school, and John Young. We are coming up on, in June, the end of that first phase one contract. I'm recommending a one-year extension. This will allow us next year, when we have our phase two, to concurrent the two contracts together for any future bidding purposes. We have written into that self-contract there, we've got several voluntary extensions, and we're just choosing to, well, I'm going off track, choose one of those options this year. And I put in just the monthly price as comparison for this one-year contract renewal. We're actually saving $500 per month from the previous 3-year contract.
Move for approval?
I'd like to state a potential conflict of interest. They are a major customer of mine, but I will still vote.
Okay. So there's a motion, but we are lacking a second. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to recommend the approval, and Mr. Pemberton's noting his potential issue with this. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 9.03, approval of affiliation agreement with Memorial Hospital of South Bend for physical therapy services. Mrs. Miklos.
Mr. Curry, Mr. Barker, members of the board, for your consideration tonight, I bring an affiliation agreement between School City of Mishawaka and Memorial Hospital of South Bend. We have done contract work with them for about 40 years, as long as special ed was in place in School City of Mishawaka and Penn Harris Madison. They have always been our provider for physical therapy services. We did discuss over the course of the last school year a possibility of partnering with our partner, St. Joe Health, to provide those services, but the timing didn't work out perfect. So I'm bringing to you a contract for 1 year for the starting on January 1st for services. Services are charged at $100 per hour for services and $50 per hour for services that are not able to be met due to student unavailability. Attached is the contract. Also, just for your information, I pulled our numbers from last year. So for the whole school year, 2018-2019, students from the age of 3 to the age of 22, our annual fee for contract services was $45,025. This year, we currently have 35 students who receive related services for physical therapy. We have a new young physical therapist through the hospital who is doing a wonderful job. We have never been dissatisfied with their services. We've actually been very happy with their services. So for your consideration, I'm recommending that we approve the affiliation agreement with Memorial Hospital of South Bend.
Move for approval?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion or questions from Mrs. Miklos?
Are we federally partially subsidized for that?
We do bill for Medicaid reimbursement, and what we've done in the past is we paid that $100 an hour fee for them to bill Medicaid, which I think is really silly. So this year I hired a clerical person at $14 or $13.47 an hour to go ahead and bill for their Medicaid reimbursement. So yes, we do receive reimbursement for students who are Medicaid eligible who receive physical therapy.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else? It's been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Miklos. Item 9.04, recommendation to approve administrator salary ranges. Mr. Newman.
Thank you, President Curry. The senior leadership team is recommending approval of administrator salary ranges for fiscal years 2020 and 2021. Certain modifications were made to the position classifications in order to accommodate updated jobs or position titles. For example, Mr. Caldroni took over the position that was previously held by Brian Rigler. However, did not inherit the exact same title. So some of the classifications changed very slightly, and then some of the ranges were increased if employees that were within that category had already reached the top of that range. And I highlighted the ranges that were changed for the board. I also struck out the classification of executive assistant, which we no longer have now moving forward. So for the board's approval this evening, our certified and non-certified administrator ranges for fiscal years 20 and 21.
Move for approval.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. There any discussion on the motion or questions for Mr. Newman? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, the final section of the agenda, communications, item 10.01, public announcements. All schools, City of Mishawaka schools, except for Mishawaka High School, will be closed for winter break from December 23rd, 2019 through January 3rd, 2020. The Administrative Center of Mishawaka High School will be closed for the holidays on December 24th, 25th, and 31st, 2019, and January 1st, 2020. The next regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees will be held on January 8th, 2020 at 6:00 p.m. at the Administrative Center, 1402 South Main Street, Mishawaka, Indiana. Is there anything else to come before the board? In that case, we are adjourned.